Thank you for joining us today. My name is Regina Ware. I am the Acting Director of Outreach for Farm Service Agency. Farm Service Agency is responsible for serving all farmers and ranchers and agricultural partners through the delivery of effective, efficient agricultural programs for all Americans. Today's webinar will share details regarding our Farm Service Agency's Emergency Livestock Relief for Flood and Wildfire, a program expected to provide approximately $1 billion in recovery benefits. But first, I would like to share a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can enter them into the Q&A box, and we will answer as many as possible. We will also answer questions live after the presentation as time permits. Any questions we don't get to, we will work to include in our frequently asked questions, which you can find on the ELRP website. This webinar will also be recorded and uploaded to the ELRP website. With that said, I will turn it over to FSA's Administrator, Bill Bean.
Okay, thank you, Regina, and thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I just want to kick things off by, first of all, saying thank you to everybody from my amazing team that has helped develop the Emergency Livestock Relief Program for flood and wildfires. Just yesterday, I had some people in my office sharing some of the experiences they had with flooding in the Carolinas. So this program is definitely needed. Just a little bit about myself for those of you that don't know me. I am a farmer from Eastern Pennsylvania, where we grow corn, soybeans, and wheat. We also have a few head of cattle. And I, as a farmer, started with the Farm Service Agency. Actually, it was called ASCS back in the day, where I was a participant in farm loans and various farm programs. But I can distinctly remember back to times where we had disasters. In my area, mostly it was drought, where really the difference between possibly me being able to survive another year to farm was the aid that I got from the Farm Service Agency. So this is ultra important to some people. We realize that we're looking at $1 billion worth of relief for both 2023 and 2024 flood and wildfire events. And like I said, hopefully we have developed a program that is beneficial to all those producers out there that are in need of this. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to our Deputy Administrator of Farm Programs, Jamie White, who is going to say a few words. Jamie?
Thank you, Administrator Beam. Very happy to be here with you all this afternoon, and very excited that we are in the deployment phase of the Emergency Livestock Relief Program 23 and 24, specific to flood and wildfire. I have the honor and privilege of serving as your Acting Deputy Administrator for Farm Programs, and we continue to ensure that we keep critical disaster relief deployment front and center. We know that this is a critical component to supporting American agriculture, and we appreciate your time and attention and participation in the stakeholder meeting today. As Bill has touched on very briefly, we have been actively rolling out emergency relief for the last several months. Certainly the first wave of emergency livestock relief was rolled out earlier this summer through the Emergency Livestock Relief Program for drought and wildfire. That is similar to prior disaster relief and leveraged a streamlined process that utilized livestock forage program data on file to automatically provide payments to producers. Again, keeping in mind that our top priority is to maintain a producer-centric focus and leaning in on leveraging a streamlined process where possible, we certainly want to be mindful of the importance of deploying direct assistance to producers in an accurate, transparent, and consistent manner. So again, as we look at livestock relief, we want producers to understand how we're calculating that assistance, where that assistance is coming from, and what specific loss is being addressed. The American Relief Act 2025 did provide an on-ramp to support livestock relief or relief for livestock producers as a direct result of flooding. Prior legislation for similar relief has limited that assistance to losses due to drought and wildfire. So Congress went to bat for livestock producers. They expanded eligible losses to include flood. And this truly did provide USDA an opportunity to deploy assistance specific to losses due to flood, recognizing hurricanes, atmospheric rivers, other significant catastrophic events have directly affected livestock producers. As we start to step into providing that livestock relief or relief for livestock producers due to flood, even perhaps wildfires, we recognize that we don't have all of that responsive data on file to deploy assistance, leveraging that streamlined approach that was previously done for losses due to drought and wildfire. As such, we have worked very hard to develop a producer interfacing application process similar to other programs that have been deployed by FSA. And this is, again, really to provide that opportunity for producers to inform the application process, provide data to calculate and deliver responsive assistance. I know as we go through the program today, we'll touch on the finer details, but one of the things that I'd like to share at the top of the call is that the Emergency Livestock Relief Program specific to flood and wildfire will be deployed or delivered through a very brief application period. The sign-up period for this program is 47 days, so it is very brief. We know folks will need to get into the office to complete their applications, and recognizing it is a tight period, I just want to amplify, we're doing this to ensure that we can deploy that critical disaster relief to you as quickly as possible. So again, this is leaning in on that producer-centric approach and making sure that we're deploying much needed disaster relief earlier rather than later. This program design will have features that are similar to other programs that we have administered here at FSA specific to emergency relief. One thing that I would like to share is, where possible, recognizing that there were widespread disaster events, catastrophic events specific to flood and specific to wildfire, the program does contemplate a county trigger in situations where there are qualifying floods or qualifying wildfires that have already been established. And that countywide trigger is really intended to minimize the producer burden of reporting information through that application process or providing supporting documentation of the qualifying disaster event in those specific counties. Again, recognizing that a countywide trigger does provide that immediate on-ramp for certain events, we also recognize we need to have an opportunity to provide individual producers access to similar assistance, because there may be similar such events that may not be as large in scale, but had a direct impact to individual producers throughout the nation. So there is also an individual producer component that individual producers can certainly apply and request assistance under the Emergency Livestock Relief Program for flood and wildfire, and demonstrate how that specific event impacted their livestock operation to ensure that we are, again, providing that responsive assistance. So the countywide trigger does support that streamlined process. There may be additional information required for producers who are applying on the individual level basis. However, that's important to ensure that we are, again, deploying responsive assistance for an eligible disaster event. And those are items that we will touch on further throughout the program today. With that, I would like to turn it over to Kelly Bronig, who serves as our Livestock Program Manager here at USDA FSA, and she's going to go through the specific nuances of the programs and really set the stage for the application process to help support successful deployment over the next month and a half. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you for your leadership and Bill's leadership for getting us to this point today. So good day, everyone. As Jamie said, my name's Kelly Brining, and I'm the program manager for the Emergency Livestock Relief Program. Among other livestock disaster programs, this is my role to lead this effort, and really excited to do so. And it is my honor and pleasure to do that, and to be able to announce this program for you today as one of our newest components of the ELRP program for flood and wildfire. So welcome again, and just wanted to just get a little run of the show. We're going to discuss just an overall program overview, what the qualifying disaster events actually are and what the eligibility is, livestock and producer, how to apply. Most importantly, how is that payment calculated and when those payments are going to be issued. And again, we're just really thankful and appreciative to be able to engage with you today as we really need to partner our efforts and really rely on you to raise awareness of our FSA programs with our livestock producers. So with that, ELRP, as they mentioned before, in December, Congress passed the American Relief Act, which authorized actually $2 billion for livestock producers. We rolled out that first program in May for the drought and wildfire. We leveraged data through livestock disaster program, but this one is different. As Jamie said, they went to bat for livestock producers that were impacted by floods. And then we also realized that there was a gap with wildfire because our previous ELRP programs only covered wildfires on federally managed land. So this program is $1 billion to provide emergency assistance to offset increased supplemental feed costs due to a flood or wildfire in calendar years 23 or 24. As Jamie mentioned, it's very expedited sign-up period. It began on Monday, and the deadline to file an application is October 31st. So again, we're responding to severe floods and wildfires that occurred in those years that impacted our livestock industry and mainly our livestock and dairy producing state regions. And these floods and wildfires disrupted feed availability, caused issues with forage conditions and strained local feed markets. So these conditions caused severe negative impact to our livestock production, and which included milk production and weaning weights. So this program will provide compensation to eligible livestock producers who incurred those increased supplemental feed costs in those calendar years, and the compensation equates to 60% of 1 month of calculated feed cost for a qualifying wildfire, and then 3 months, 60% of 3 months of calculated feed needs for a qualifying flood. So those monthly feed costs are calculated using the same monthly feed calculation that we use for LFP, our Livestock Forage Disaster Program. So here's a chart that shows what those costs are. Again, it's the same as what was calculated for LFP. So 1 animal unit for 23 and 24. For 23, that was $58.12. And for 24, it was $52.56. For wildfire, that equates to 60% of 1 month, or $34.87, and $31.54 for 24. And this is for 1 animal unit. And then there's the respective rates for flood, $104.62 for 23 and $94.61 for 24. So those payment rates, we do use the same conversion rate that we have established for LFP, and that's all based on livestock kind, type, and weight. So a qualifying flood means a severe and extreme flooding event that causes widespread destruction, significant property and crop damage, livestock loss and displacement, and it's caused major economic loss to infrastructure and the environment, typically overwhelming local flood defenses and response systems. Qualifying wildfire means an unplanned, unwanted fire burning in natural areas like forests, grasslands, or brushlands on non-federally managed lands. These fires can be started by natural causes like lightning or human activities, and they consume vegetation and spread based on environmental conditions. A qualifying wildfire does not include fires that were planned, intentional, or prescribed burns. And again, this is for non-federally managed lands. federally managed lands were compensated under the previous ELRP program. So to streamline program delivery, as Jamie had mentioned, FSA has determined that specific eligible counties that had a qualifying flood or qualifying wildfire in those calendar years, we used disaster designations, specific weather data for the area, and reported economic impacts. For losses in those counties, livestock producers are not required to submit supporting documentation that that qualifying disaster event occurred. And a list of those counties can be found at the fsa.usda.gov webpage under the ELRP portfolio. So for losses in counties not listed as eligible, as Jamie mentioned, livestock producers may still apply for this program, but just need to do one extra step and provide supporting documentation to demonstrate that that qualifying flood or wildfire did occur in the county where their livestock were located, directly impacted their operation, or livestock were located there or should have been located there if not due to the disaster event. So the FSA committees, county committees, we rely heavily on them to administer our programs on every program that we have. And so they will play a role in making that determination of eligibility. So here's just a sample listing of some acceptable documentation to support a qualifying disaster event. It could be a combination of usually just anything that producer can tell their story on how this disaster event affected their operation. So it could be photographs, insurance documentation, emergency declaration reports, news articles, NOAA storm event records, other FSA disaster program participation records, or any other documentation that may be determined acceptable by the FSA County Committee. So livestock eligibility is similar to covered livestock as used for the LFP program. So here's a listing of the eligible livestock. Again, it's similar to LFP. They must be owned, leased, purchased, or entered into a contract for purchase, or be a contract grower of as of the date of that qualifying disaster. They must be produced for commercial purposes, must be considered a grazing animal that it gets at least more than 50% of their nutritional needs from forage and legumes, but they don't necessarily have to be grazing at the time to be eligible for this program. So for example, dairy cattle are on the list of eligible livestock. So dairy operations that meet all other eligibility criteria, they are eligible for this program. Again, similar to LFP, ineligible livestock or livestock that are located in a feedlot, livestock used for racing, hunting, wagering, or consumption by the owner. So at the time of application, producers will be required to provide supporting documentation to support their eligible livestock inventories that they will report on this application as of the beginning date of that qualifying event. Again, here's an exhaustive list of the supporting documentation producers may use to support their livestock inventories by kind, type, and weight class, preferably. So as you can see, this is pretty expansive, but it just needs to be documentation determined acceptable by the county committee. Livestock producers can receive assistance for one or both program years if they have multiple disaster events. However, producers cannot receive or exceed the equivalent of 3 months of assistance per producer, per physical location, per program year. Payment limitation is similar to the other ELRP programs that we've rolled out. No person or legal entity other than a joint venture or general partnership can receive or indirectly more than $125,000 per program year if their average adjusted gross farm income is less than 75% of the AGI for applicable base years. ELRP 23 and 24 program that was announced in May. This program is combined with this program. So producers who already received that maximum under that drought and wildfire program will not be eligible to receive an additional payment under this program. However, we do have that option of the completion of the FSA 510. That's a request for an exception to that $125,000 payment limitation rule if 75% or more of their adjusted gross income it comes from farming, ranching, and forestry. And the over 900,000 AGI limitation that's applicable to a lot of our other programs does not apply to this program. So most importantly, how to apply. So producers who incurred increased supplemental feed costs due to a qualifying flood or wildfire during those calendar years will file one application, the FSA 970, per program year in their recording county. And the recording county is the county that administers all their payment limitation and eligibility records. But applications can be received and accepted at any county office across the country. This program requires an application, unlike previous ELRP programs, because FSA, we did not have that producer data to leverage and automatically issue payments like we did in previous rollouts. So producers must submit the FSA 970, any supporting documentation that's needed to support their livestock inventories. If their records are not up to date with FSA, they may need to supply some sort of documentation to do that. If they are not in an approved county, they will need to provide supporting documentation of that qualifying disaster event. And if they are a contract grower, they will need to provide a copy of that agreement, similar to LFP. And again, that is for program eligibility, and that needs to be submitted by October 31st. So as Jamie mentioned, it's a very expedited application period. So for payment eligibility, these are the forms that need to be submitted in order to receive payment by November 2nd. So it's the 902 Farm Operating Plan. If you're an entity, we need a completed 901 for that member information, a 1026 for that highly erodible and wetland conservation certification. And if you want to supply the FSA 510, that's an optional form, and if it's applicable to you, that's would need to be submitted by that date as well. And those forms do need to be accompanied with a certification from a CPA or an attorney. So the payment is calculated by the producer will report their eligible covered livestock as of the beginning date of that qualifying disaster event. That's multiplied by that producer's share, who he'll also report that on the application. The payment rates, as I went over before, 60% of 1 month of calculated monthly feed costs for a wildfire, or 3 months of calculated monthly feed costs for a flood. That will be the gross calculated payment for this program. And then at the time when FSA can determine a program factor, if applicable, that will be multiplied by that factor determined by DAFI. So here's an example, payment example for a qualifying flood for a flood that happened in calendar year 2024. So Cooper Cattle Company was directly impacted by a qualifying flood in Allegheny County, North Carolina on September 27th, 2024, due to Hurricane Helene. This disaster destroyed feed that had been purchased and impacted the ability for the livestock to graze multiple pastures, causing the producer to purchase additional supplemental feed to sustain his livestock. The producer provided documentation that he had 250 head of adult beef cattle in inventory on that date, the beginning date of the qualifying flood. So that here's how that payment is calculated, 250 head times the ELRP 24 flood payment rate. And again, that's for one animal unit, which is what It is for beef cattle. And the gross payment before payment factor is $23,655. So since there is limited funding, FSA will not be issuing any payment until program demand is determined, and if possible, an initial payment factor may be established. After the application deadline, program demand obviously will be known and established, and payments will be finalized at that time. And if applicable, payment factor will be determined and issued at that time. So I just want to thank you for your time and attention today. We always really need your help in raising awareness for our livestock producers of the ability of FSA programs. Again, here's that website again that has the dashboard, that has an eligible county dashboard. It's really slick to use. It's very user-friendly. The application form and instructions, fact sheets also located there, and the final rule is also posted there for your reading enjoyment. So please spread the word. Any help you can do to provide or educate our livestock producers of the program is always greatly appreciated. So thank you, and we can open it up for questions.
Okay, Jamie, if you can take us away with the questions, we'd appreciate that.
Certainly. Kelly, thank you for the detailed program overview. And a couple of these items build off of slides that you've already touched on, but just want to clarify based on the questions coming in. You referenced the FSA 510, which is the exception, request for an exception to the payment limitation. The question is, if producers have already submitted that for ELRP, drought, and wildfire, would they need to do that again if they are participating in this livestock relief program?
No, they would not. As long as it's for the applicable applicant and for the applicable program year, you would not need to submit that form again.
Thank you. Keeping in the same vein, just organizing questions that have come in. Certain FSA disaster programs require the adjusted gross income certification. Is adjusted gross income or that AGI certification, are those provisions applicable to this emergency livestock relief program?
Those provisions are not applicable to this program.
Okay. Another question that has come in specific to dairies, recognizing the prior livestock relief program, again, focused on grazing acres. The specific question is, dairies oftentimes certainly have a dry lot, but would dairy animals be eligible if there are not any grazing acres under this wave of emergency livestock relief?
They are definitely eligible, and that's probably one of the main reasons, and I can attest to this, you know, when we were developing policy, we kept dairy operations first and foremost almost in our mind, because a lot of times, to your point, they fall short of some eligibility with some of our programs because of those grazing acres. So we don't have that component with this program. So yes, they are definitely eligible.
Okay. Thank you. The final question really pertains to livestock inventory in general. And Kelly, knowing that there are many other livestock programs that are administered by FSA, and producers have perhaps reported livestock inventory numbers before, if that information is on file and it would align with the disaster event date, is that something producers can lean on rather than submit new livestock inventory numbers and records?
Absolutely, yes. FSA, that is one of our top priorities, is trying to leverage any data that the producer has already submitted to their FSA offices we're more than happy to use that data, as to your point, as long as it does align with those disaster events, certainly. Great question.
Thank you, Kelly. Well, you did such an outstanding job covering a lot of ground in today's discussion. There aren't any more questions that we have in the chat, but I will turn it back over to our team to close out the discussion today.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending. This concludes the webinar. I want to say thank you to FSA leadership as well as the Farm Programs team for getting this program implemented. As mentioned, please check the ELRP website for updates, answers to questions, and to find a copy of this recording. With that said, have a good afternoon.